Hey guys, and welcome to this new video. In this video, I would like to have a little discussion with you. I would like to express my opinion, and I'm very curious about your thoughts as it concerns the topic of Thread and Meta. The standard is practically at the door, and as you can see here, the first products are already fluttering into my house, which I will of course take a look at in the next videos. But before I start everything here, I wanted to take a look at the basic standard, that is Meta, and highlight the advantages and, in my opinion, also the disadvantages. But more on that after the intro. Enjoy. Yes, as I mentioned, Meta is just around the corner and I already have the first products here. However, I've had a bit of difficulty taking a closer look at them because I originally come from the Wi-Fi smart home standard and used some Wi-Fi light bulbs before I switched to Zigbee. For me, there was always a small hurdle because for Zigbee you need this Zigbee stick, which you have to purchase additionally. A bridge. And I always found it a bit annoying when I want to get a light bulb from IKEA that I then have to get an IKEA bridge or a Philips Hue bridge with Philips Hue lamps and so on. That means, in the end, I had 5 bridges connected here, 5 different Zigbee manufacturers, and each time you invested in a new system, you basically had to get a new bridge, which resulted in a relatively large initial investment. The whole situation has changed due to the Zigbee sticks, which are partly open source and above all, more universally usable, meaning they can integrate various manufacturers. They still present a small hurdle for the initial purchase, but afterwards they are significantly cheaper compared to, for example, Zigbee or other standards. Furthermore, and this was a huge advantage for me, you are independent of manufacturers and can ensure that devices cannot communicate with the manufacturers, but rather that your entire smart home operates locally at your home. So if a cloud service fails somewhere in China, you can completely disregard it because your smart home server at home works reliably and always. Unfortunately, not everything is perfect with this standard, as I believe it is a huge mistake that Zigbee only allows a single Zigbee coordinator dongle. This means that if this dongle fails for any reason, your entire smart home comes to a standstill. Nothing works anymore. No lights, no switches, everything is dead until you have that dongle up and running again. Of course, you can back everything up, but you also have to worry about restoring it in case of a failure, which can be quite frustrating during a celebration at home or in other situations when you have guests over, especially if they suddenly find themselves in the dark and have to light the house with candles. Accordingly, I am of course looking forward to the new Meta standard, which will allow you to connect multiple border routers, giving you the opportunity to have a certain level of redundancy in your system. Furthermore, this standard is manufacturer independent, meaning that it doesn't matter which border router you choose to get. This way, you have the opportunity to choose the best manufacturer that you like the most and to use that one. What I also find nice is that the manufacturers have thought about how to continue using the whole system, meaning that older devices still receive updates in some cases. Very good, one must simply say. Philips Hue is doing this as they have been incorporating Bluetooth into their lamps for ages and can therefore implement the new Thread and Meta standard relatively quickly and will do so. That means, even though at the beginning the Philips Hue lamps were probably the most expensive Zigbee lamps you could buy, or among the most expensive, they ultimately provided the advantage that you can now likely use them with the new standard. Other manufacturers have focused on their hardware, kept prices relatively low, and as a result, they have now fallen through the cracks and need to be replaced if one wants to fully adopt the new standard. Of course, Philips Hue is not the only manufacturer doing this. SwitchBot, from whom I have already received the products, has also done this and will provide support for the old devices, which I will also take a look at in one of the upcoming videos. But here I have already noticed that the 2021 update functionality also brings some disadvantages, as local usability is, as I mentioned, very important to me. I would prefer that my smart home operates completely without the internet in order to ensure not only data protection, but also the highest possible availability of my smart home. However, manufacturers have the option to connect old devices via Thread or making it Meta capable by inserting a bridge that translates these devices more or less. The same thing has happened with some manufacturers now. You can connect your old devices to a new bridge, and this bridge then offers the new Meta standard. This bridge logically needs to be connected to your network and thus has full internet access unless you restrict it, of course. Thus, We have exactly the same problem as with all the Wi-Fi devices that can transmit freely over the internet, their own cloud services, or you can build cloud dependencies, from which you then become completely dependent. What I would have wished for is a kind of multi-step verification or similar. A kind of multi-level standard that indicates whether the device itself is Meta or not. Thread support is either present or only available through a bridge, thus receiving only a half support stamp, which makes it clear and directly identifiable whether, when I acquire this device, I will get native thread support, or if I will have to hang 5 different bridges on the wall that will then make the devices Meta compatible. And last but not least, I have to say, I find it quite shocking how long this standard has been announced. Now the first devices are being rolled out, and one can see that this standard still does not cover all devices. That means, even if manufacturers wanted to include everything by 2021, not all devices are yet included in the current standard, which is very unfortunate because smart home technology has been on the market for quite some time now, and therefore we should have at least 90% of the devices already implemented in the standard. But let's hope that this changes in the future. As for the bridge situation, I can imagine that unfortunately, this will not be the case. I would hope that the manufacturers provide a Meta-capable bridge in the first step, for all those who already have 1,000 old devices and want them to be Meta-compatible. In the second step, hopefully, an update will be provided for all devices so that they have native thread and Meta support, and one can then have this when purchasing new devices. Upgrading old devices can mean that in a few years you won't have to deal with all those bridges hanging on the wall anymore, but rather have a single border router that manages communication with, for example, Apple HomeKit, Google Home, Home Assistant, and so on. So, that should be it for this somewhat different video. However, I would really be very interested in your opinion. Perhaps I have a completely different view than you. If so, feel free to write it in the comments below and let's discuss the topic. If you would like to see some unboxings or reviews of Meta Thread devices in the future, feel free to subscribe to the channel, as I already have the first devices here that we will take a look at. So, with that said, I would say we will see each other in the next video. Until then, take care and goodbye.